Hi, my name is Brian Handelsman. I'm representing NC State and Moxie Solar and doing my capstone project for EA 523. The point of this whole project here is going to be to see the capstone project for solar storage in operations and maintenance. And so the main thing to consider is going to be that what we have basically had to do is create a project for a customer. In my case, I used an actual customer of mine, Roger Brinkman, who I have been building in a real system for. This is actually getting built right now as we speak. And so what this is the goal of this project is to provide Roger a solar plus storage system for Roger's new build barn in Georgetown, Texas, to run the entire barn off of the grid. So he is building a barn from scratch because in America, once you have a system connected to the grid, you cannot pull off of the grid, but he wanted something completely off grid that he could run entirely just off of solar power, which was really cool to work on. And so the first step of this process was to analyze the loads that Roger will be using to accurately size the system. So the way to do that was using the outbound solar and storage guidelines. So there is a website called Outbound Solar where you're able to plug in a bunch of different types of usage, and then you're able to then figure out exactly how much power he'll be using in that time. So after analyzing the loads that were sent, Moxie, we were able to come up with the design to completely offset all of his usage so that the entire barn can run off of his solar and the batteries that store the energy. And then on top of that, we are going to be adding a propane generator as well, just on the back end. That is not planned to be run at any time. He just wants it in case of a true emergency, the kind of the person that he is. So next thing is the diagram and location of components. So a solar plus storage system for an off-grid needs many components. Some of those include, the charge controller, the inverters, the batteries, and the solar panels. There are much more to be added on as well, but these are kind of the main pieces to it. And then obviously the generator, it actually is even included in this diagram to go on at the end. And then in this specific case, this one is not going to be connected to any sort of electrical service. So the solar system. So the first piece of it is, how big to build the system that's going to go on his roof. So what we're looking at is while analyzing the loads, it was determined. So Roger will use an average of around 18,000 to 24 kilowatt hours per year in the barn. And so we use PV watts to determine how much solar we would need. And so while using that info, the barn has a 25-degree tilt roof. It faces directly 180 degrees south. So it was determined that 35 420 watt panels or a 14.7 kilowatt system would meet those needs. As you can see right next to it, this shows PV watts directly, showing that he is making an average of 22,728. He did mention in his original conversation with me that he wanted us to be safe and not sorry. He was happy to add more solar than needed to make sure to, in case he wanted to add anything, or to just be very sure that this is going to run everything that he needs it to. So the battery component. This is probably one of the most important pieces of his system. The battery that we have chosen for his system was actually, we worked with Outback Solar on this. And we came up with the concept to use the Simplify 3.8 kWh LFP batteries with a 48 volts. And then that includes a Midnight Solar 10-string disconnecting battery combiner. So what's great about this is we're going to be using only 6 of these batteries because that is what the sizing tools told us. But we're going to give him the Midnight 10-string disconnecting so that if he ever wanted to add 4 more batteries, he's more than welcome to. Scalability was a big thing that he mentioned to me in this project. So we did our best to work with scalability. On top of this, the battery, this battery is perfect because it's deep cycle. So what's really important about deep cycle is that it can cycle very often and not lose any of its power and not go bad as quickly as some of these other batteries. And for a home that every single day he's going to be filling up the batteries and every night he's going to be using the batteries, deep cycle is imperative. On top of that, the batteries are set up in parallel. Keep them running longer, avoid adding up voltage. That's an easy one. On top of that, so I determined, like I said, that we're going to use 6 of the 5 batteries, which equals over 22.8 kilowatt hours of backup. And we found out Roger only needs around 20.1. So again, going a little bit higher, but adding that 10-string combiner gives him the opportunity to always add more if necessary. And then finally, the best part of this battery is that it is lithium ferrophosphate So it's modular, it's lightweight, it's actually the safest lithium chemistry on the market, and it totally can avoid the risk of any thermal or runaway fire, which is really important, especially in Texas when we were looking at it. The next piece of the project is going to be the inverters. So the inverter being used for this project will be a SolarArc 12K, 120, 240, 208 volt, 48 volt hybrid all-in-one inverter. So the main reason to use this is because variability. So what's really great is, in this barn, he's going to have anything from normal lights to ceiling fans, all the way up to dryers. He's actually putting his old RV in there, and he wants that to be able to hook up to the system. So we want to be able to run products all the way from any side of the spectrum, which is where that all-in-one really comes in. And it's great too, because this also allows for that scalability in the future. And it is 48 volts, so it does match the voltage of the batteries. And these SolarArcs are known to be really good. And the monitoring software on them is very wonderful. So the next thing is going to be the design. So we're going to locate the charge controller and the inverter on the outside of the barn. That's going to be along with the propane generator that will be added as that last resort. The propane generator, we're actually putting over 50 feet away from the barn, just in case, obviously, to keep that safe. And then we're going to run a line underneath the ground for him. The batteries themselves are going to be located inside the barn, inside of the midnight combiner cabinet, to keep them safe against any harsh Texas weather. And honestly, when you're working with batteries, you want to keep them away from as much as you possibly can. And then the electrical panel for the barn is going to be located directly next to the charge controller and the inverter. And all the wires were actually, when he designed the barn, he built it with a wire tray going underneath the entire barn, which is really cool. So we're just going to tie into that wire tray on the bottom, and that's where all the wires will go for him. The cost of the system. So this is a real system that actually has been paid for and is in the process of being built. So I wanted to use real numbers here. I thought that'd be cool. So the system is going to be fully installed, purchased, and maintained by Moxie Solar. So we did the complete cost. We're doing all the work, including generator installation, solar installation, battery, off-grid hookup, electrical work, like all of that stuff is all done by us, including maintenance. So we're able to come up with a turnkey functional solution. This price is going to include, as I mentioned, generator, batteries, inverters, charge controllers, wires, all warranty and maintenance, all solar panels, everything together. And that is all going to be set up to be functioning. So not just the products themselves, but a functioning system. And the total cost comes out to $71,234. That was the final price that was decided and discussed. And that is what we're looking at for a system of this size in the area that is in to do what it has to do. The next thing for this is performance indicators. So SolarArc is really cool. They actually have a monitoring software directly. It is directly on the inverter, and you can actually get it virtually as well. So what you're able to see, so first of all, let's take a look at this one over here on the left. So this shows you the solar production, exactly how much you're getting produced from your solar. It does also show you the electricity coming from the grid. This one will constantly just show 0 for Roger since he doesn't have a grid. And then it shows the usage that's coming into the home and the battery life here. So that shows it kind of more of a simplistic way to look at it. Roger's he's a smart guy, and he likes his numbers very clearly. So what's really important is to be able to see in an actual just number format, the solar side, the grid, the inverter. This one actually shows how well the inverter is working, which is cool. The loads that are coming through, and then the battery as well. And again, you could see, you could pull together a bunch of charts, a bunch of graphs. Like the website's very easy and very simplistic to use. And then the only data that Roger really needs to keep for this system is his login, because all of this SolarArc data is going to be saved directly onto his computer, right into the SolarArc itself. So he does not have to worry about writing down info or anything to that effect. And Moxie is also going to monitor this system from remotely as well to make sure that everything is going to be functioning as intended. Next thing is operations. So Moxie, we work with our own service technicians and electricians to be able to do service for the system. With that in mind, no third-party services will be necessary whatsoever. Our O&M team, our operations and maintenance team, they will begin by getting access to the monitoring portal, and that will show how our team how to monitor every piece of the system to make sure that it's working in real time. So, we're able to see how the batteries are working. We're able to see the panels, the inverters, all those pieces and parts to make sure that we're giving Roger what he intended on receiving. And then our entire service team and electrician team is all NABCEP certified. So we are very qualified to build this type of system and service. Showing here, there's a lot of different types of maintenance to go over. I'll kind of go over that more in the future. Here. So the next piece will be the maintenance side. So there are 4 different types of maintenance. There's administrative, preventative, corrective, and condition-based. So administrative is going to be planning for basically setting up so that we have all of the software. So like administrative is honestly setting up that Solarc monitor, making sure we have data to back up everything. We keep all of his permits that we needed to get. We keep all of his purchases from all of his systems, just in case any warranties are needed. That's really what administrative comes down to, is having all the documentation and data set up in case something were to go wrong. The next is going to be preventative. So that's almost exactly as it sounds, to where we look at the system and we see, hey, what are the things on this system that could potentially fail or could go wrong? And a lot of times, it's simple stuff: screws, nuts, bolts, little stuff like that. So what Moxie is going to do is we're going to keep a lot of these extra products in our warehouse in Austin, Texas, and then we'll commission the system and come out 1 year later. That's all included in preventative. We are just planning for the worst case scenarios and setting it up so that just in case something does go wrong. The next is going to be corrective maintenance. So what that comes out to is, if something goes wrong, what are we going to do to respond? So with Moxie, we have a 25-year warranty, including parts, products, and labor for everything. That does exclude acts of God, but that will be on Roger's own homeowner's insurance. We'll still do all the work for it, but his insurance will obviously pay for that. And then the only also the batteries are only 10-year warranty. That's from the manufacturers. You can't find a battery that is more than 10 years at this moment. So, but that's all the corrective stuff involved. And then condition-based. So what that really means is, what do we do kind of when the worst happens, and kind of what do we have set in place to keep him happy? So Moxie actually is something that I don't think I've mentioned before. We have an uptime guarantee of 98.5%. So that just means if you have a piece or pieces of the system that are not functional for more than 4 days out of a 365-day period of the year, then we will actually pay for the customer's lost power. This is something that our CEO, Jason Hall, decided to do a long time ago, and it's actually what put us into the top 10 in the country. So our technicians basically are pressured, in a sense, to fix any problems immediately, or else it's Moxie that's going to be paying rather than the customer. So that's where the condition-based maintenance really comes into play. And that's where Moxie really goes above and beyond with our customer service, that, we are guaranteeing that your systems will be operational and that you will have uptime of over 98.5%. The last thing here is decision. So Roger was the key decision maker for this entire project. He is the only person deciding if this is right for his family. His family has tasked him with that. I think he has his wife and he has 4 children. And he wanted to create something so that, when everything failed, like it did in Texas, he had a place to go with his family to kind of get away from all the craziness. I do believe right now he also has a home in Texas too. We already built a solar system for his home, so he trusts us. He knows what we're doing. He knows that we do it right. And I do believe that eventually their goal is to move there and stay at this barn full time in an off-grid solution, which is honestly the dream. I found this project to be insanely fun to work on, to build and see come to fruition. And we're excited to work with Roger and to welcome him into the Moxie Solar family. So last piece here is references. Obviously, we used a lot of different things here to work through all the different off-grid solar stuff and sizing calculators and PV watts and everything to that effect. And Moxie Solar is the main person that kind of ran the entire project. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this and work through this with me. And thank you very much, and glad to be working in this class and excited that I have now gained my certificate here. So thank you and have a great day. Bye.